The endocannabinoid system, a definition, it's a network. It's a network of receptors. You have CB1 and CB2 receptors throughout your brain and body, right? And including in the brain, it's in our immune system, and all of our organs, right? And it plays an important role in regulating. So the endocannabinoid system brings our body back to homeostasis, right? Such as an appetite, pain sensation, mood, immune function. So that's what our endocannabinoid system does. And when we're consuming cannabis, right, the cannabinoids enter our system, connects with the receptors, and that's how we get these effects, right? And when we talk about all these different strains, right, there's so many strains. There's what we used to, indica, sativa, hybrid. It's all hybrid at this point. I mean, that's all I see is hybrid. So it's like, how do we navigate that space because sativa and indica, it used to be a great way to really categorize our weed until we know about terpenes now, right? And terpenes, there's so many different terpenes out there, and these are, each terpene will give us a different effect, and each of us, we can both be smoking the same strand. Our endocannabinoid systems are it's gonna affect us differently. It could affect us the same, but it could affect us differently. So when it comes to trying to find the right strain, it's a lot of trial and error, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Let me try this strain out today. I'm gonna pick up that sour D. This one made me feel really good, right? I like how this made me feel. So then I can go online and look up the terpene profile. And then I can see, well, these are the prominent terpenes. These three, let's say myrcene, let's say limonene, and linalool are in there. Those are the three prominent terpenes that I can start navigating. I want to feel a similar way that I felt with this, in this strand, but I want to try something new, that I can start trying to shop that way, you know? So that's why it's really important to really start, not just what you are consuming, know what you're consuming. Reflect on how it made you feel. Look into the strands. Do your homework. Do your homework on the strains. Do your homework on the companies you support. So the companies that you support, that's part of being conscious, right? So let's talk terpenes.
Terpenes, let's talk terpenes. Yes, so terpenes are very, to me, terpenes is what I hunt for when I'm looking for a strain. Some people are THC oriented. They just want to get high. Me, I like the flavors of it. And I also like the effects of it. So like if I'm going for like a myrcene, if I'm looking at myrcene is, it's going to be like more of a calming, it keeps me cool type of effect. But if I go for like a limonene or a pinene, that's going to be like more uplifting. You know what I mean? So, but also too, sometimes I want that limonene flavor. Sometimes I want that limonene flavor, like that lavender thing. You know what I mean? So it depends on what I'm looking for at that moment. That's what I'm going to look for in the terpene within that strain. Also, too, it's not just terpenes in the strain. It's how much terpene you have, how much CBD you have, your THC. All these things together make how that strain is going to affect you, how it's going to taste, and the aromatic effects of it. So it's kind of like now that we're learning more about weed. It's like, okay, I got to do my homework now on these strains, and these strains are coming up. You got these dosey strains, you got the gumbo strains, you got all of these different strains, but each of them, the terpene level, certain terpenes is going to be more prominent. You have certain strains that are grown by certain people, but the terpene is not the same as someone else that grows it, depending on your grower, depending on the things that they focus on, how they grow. Is it be hydroponic? Is it a live soil grow? Me personally, I prefer a live soil grow. I think your terpene, your flavors is a lot better than your live soil grow.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I want to add one thing real quick before we move on to Spencer. Like Kyle was saying, some people shop like THC. They just want the highest THC. THC that's not really gonna direct you to how you feel. You want to think about THC levels as the gas pedal of how fast it's gonna onset. What's gonna make you feel how you feel is gonna be those terpenes. So that's something we really all want to start diving into. Spencer.
Yeah, I'm a myrcene guy too. Actually, when you said that over there, I got excited because I learned about, myrcene about a year and a half ago. I was in Vegas, with the bud tender. And that's another thing, bud tenders, they can either be super helpful or not helpful at all, you know what I mean? So when they are helpful, they're giving you information, they're educating you, and that was super helpful to me. I was like, all right, so it's look for the flavors you like and what you smoke. And I was like, well, I just look for indicas. Is what I told him. He was like, okay. Indica usually you might want to look for myrcenes and put you down a little bit. So then after that, I spent a whole year just looking for some straight myrcene strains. So that's like what I'm usually hunting for. But like you said, I like a little bit of variety with the lime and those type of things. And I was at 420. I was Washington Square Park. There's a company called New Amsterdam out of Brooklyn, really fire girl. They had like a lime headband, like fusion was fire. And it was like those lemon terps we were talking about. And it's not something I smoke on the daily, but you know, it's 420, it's during the day, so I'm trying to try new flavors, and I was like, really excited to try it. So
Nice.
yeah, I definitely have kind of my go-tos, but I love obviously trying everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I wanna add something else in that Kyle was saying. You can have, let's use Skittles. You can have Skittles grown by A over here and Skittles grown by B here, but if they're not the same clone off that plant, they're both not gonna hit you the same. You're gonna need to do trial on both of them. They may be a similar, but each seed you pop, each seed you plant is gonna be, it's like mom and dad have a kid. They have 100 kids. Each kid is gonna look a little bit different. They may have similarities, but they're gonna be different. So when we're trying new brands, trying that same strain but from a new brand, we're going to instill that process. So don't always expect to get the same result from the same strain if it's not from the same grower. Awesome. And let's, anyone want to share with us what maybe favorite terpene?
Limonene.
Okay.
I just like the lemon.
Do you like the effect of it, the uplift?
I do for sativas, but just the taste and the flavor. Like I'm not really a citrus sweet smoker. I like gases and diesels and stuff that's pungent, but that would be my citrus one. Would be anything like.
Awesome. So we talked a lot about myrcene, right? Myrcene, terpenes aren't just found in cannabis, right? They're found in all flowers. They're found in fruits. And myrcene, mangoes, yeah. So I just wanted to put that connection together.
Actually, just to add something, actually on 420, I did an event with Hussein. We were at a brewery called Elementary. And so they had me speak about how the terpenes and the hops and the beers can be paired with the terpenes and the weed. I thought that was a super cool concept, you know. But just like you were just saying, the terpenes are in all plants. You know, when you're smelling the tulip, there's a terpene that you're smelling. So to connect the beers with the weed, I thought that was a super cool concept. I just wanted to add that.
Like that. So let's move on to choosing the right terpenes for you. And that all starts off with, like, my process is I'm asking myself, what is it that I'm trying to heal? And if I'm not trying to heal, what is it that I want to get out of consuming now? So that's my first question, right? I want to know what is it I'm getting out of it. I want to share just myself a little bit. For me, cannabis has been a part of my life from a young age. You know, I was probably first time consuming was too young, probably 13. You know, older brothers, that's how it goes. But my cannabis became more medicinal for me. My relationship changed with it back in 2010. I was struck by a car. I was run over and I nearly died. I fractured my L4, my L5, my S1 in my back. My pelvis fractured into 5 pieces, so I have 2 plates and 5 screws, collapsed lung, bruised kidney, and they ultimately saved my life. Harlem Hospital. They saved my life. They gave me 5 units of blood, and that's what kept me alive. And in the hospital, they gave me on morphine, and I was able to transition off the morphine while being there. My brother's wife was making me edibles, so I was able to make that transition because I wasn't going to be another number. I wasn't going to be another number in this opiate epidemic. It just wasn't. I know better. Know better, do better. So I transitioned while being in the hospital. They had me on morphine XL. I deal with this. I deal with it. I do yoga. I do breath work. I have these different practices because cannabis is a tool, just as the movement practices are, just as the meditations and the breath work. These are all the tools that I've learned to help me become a better version of myself, to help me feel good. And between these practices and using cannabis, I've been able to rebuild myself stronger than before, mentally and physically. So it's just such a beautiful plant, and that's why I feel forever indebted to spread the truth about cannabis. And if you're ready to be susceptible to the plant, there's so much healing that she can do. So, you know, the first question I ask myself is, what is it that I'm trying to heal? And something I deal with on a day-to-day is pain management. You know, when I wake up first thing in the mornings when I'm in the most pain. My body's been inactive, I've been sleeping all night. So that's when I'm most uncomfortable. I wake up in the morning, my body hurts. So typically I'll do some plank holds. I'll do some hip lifts, something to get my core fired up. Do my meditation. I consume. You know, I have a routine that makes me feel good. You know, and routines are great. Routines are great. So that's it. The first thing is what is it that I'm trying to heal, and once I know what I want to heal, then I can start navigating what strains. You know, if I'm going to visit Ascend, I can see what they have on their menu before I even get there. I can see what they have, and I can say, well, I know I want something with minimal mercy, and I want something to help me with with the inflammation in my body. I want something to help me with the pain. Well, then I can start looking at their menu before I even go in there, because technology is kind of cool, you know. So we can see all the strains they have there, and I can start navigating before I even get there. Well, I know what I'm looking for, this and this, and then I can start looking, cool, this strand. Let me see what terpenes are in here. And that's kind of how I start my navigation. And then from there, it's trial and error. I'm gonna buy a strain, and either it's a hit or maybe it wasn't. But I can reflect on it. I can have a journal and just take note. Take note of what I did like, what I didn't like. Maybe that's the one. Maybe this is the new one for now. Maybe it's not. But I think it's important that we cannabis is a lot of trial and error. There is no right one strain for all. I'm going to pass it off to Kyle.
So what do I look for?
Well, when it comes to like when you're consuming, like how do you make your choices on what you're going to consume?
So kind of similar to you. I'm gonna look at what am I smoking for at that moment, because I do like flower, but I also do like concentrates.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm looking at what am I doing this for? Is my back hurting? Am I having anxiety at this moment? And so that's when I'm gonna look first for those things. If I'm just smoking or just consuming so that I'm just gonna have a good time or just to enjoy, then most times I'm looking for flavor. Flavor plus THC is what, to me, that's my pair. That's my peanut butter and jelly.
Let's see, the questions what to look for. I guess, like you said, kind of what the intention is. I played football in college, so my body, like you said, I wake up in the morning, that's like shaking all the rust off. So kind of wake up, smoke one, I kind of get in a little bit like a movement kind of thing. I run in the mornings, probably like 4 or 5 times a week. So that's kind of my process. Kind of wake up, smoke, kind of take whatever, like electrolytes, water, banana, and just like go on a run, and that kind of gets my day started. And then I'm smoking throughout the day too, just because it calms my mind. I kind of run, 24/7. I work in finance, so like I'm always like looking at spreadsheets, like just doing like random stuff. So those kind of just breaks between the day, kind of like, all right, like 12 o'clock, smoke break, kind of chill out, then get back to the road running. It's kind of my process. So I really go towards like strains that put me down like all the time, and like I don't like fall asleep off them. And that's kind of going back to the fact that everybody's different. Like you can kind of just figure out what works for you. But for me, like I'm always kind of going. So for me, I love just like being down and just going through my day. So yeah, that's kind of my process.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I want to bring up, so Kyle was just mentioning concentrates. So how many of you guys heard of, let's say, rosin, shatter, resin, there's so many different concentrates, and how I like to explain concentrates compared to like just a joint is kind of like a joint would be like that beer, and a concentrate would be like a shot of liquor. But I'm a huge fan of concentrates. Well, really, I'm a huge fan of rosin. It's very clean. There's no extraction process, right? For the rosin, they'll cut it, they'll freeze it. I believe that they'll end up pressing it between 2 hot plates, right? And there we got some good rosin here coming up. But that rosin is amazing. You can take a little bit, and it's just a very clean, we'll call it a high, right? It's very clean, but it's also something that if you're in pain, if you need higher levels of THC in your body, concentrates are a great way. And there's CBD concentrates, because a lot of these CBD products you need higher, more, what am I looking for, where it needs to be a higher level of higher dosage, and that can be hard to get. But with the extractions, with the concentrates, we're able to. So they have their place. Yes, they have their place. Question?
I have a question, especially for, sorry,
Spencer.
Spencer.
No worries, Spencer.
So I can't smoke and function, like ever. So I only smoke if I know that my bed is right here,
Yeah.
right?
I feel you.
So I did hear you say you could smoke and then go through, with your day and continue to work.
Mhm.
Is there a tip to that, or that's just something that naturally happened?
I think it's something that naturally happened, honestly. Like, it's always kind of been a part of my life. Like, I guess when I got into college, I've always kind of just smoked and did stuff. It's always been the kind of a thing. So I think it's every person's kind of different. But if I did have any tips, it would just be like, you don't want to smoke the whole joint, you know what I mean? Just like maybe hit one time and just kind of just feel like a little bit of hit, you know what I mean? So I feel like maybe start small and then try to go from there. But I definitely understand the notion of just kind of not being able to function after just wanting to have smoke and go to sleep. I think that's great too, you know what I mean? Like everyone has their, position plan. So I would say start small and then maybe start with activities like you aren't that important maybe, you know what I mean? Like start with like just smoking, just like clean your house maybe, and then smoking and walking your dog, and then smoking, going to the grocery store, you know what I mean? It's like,
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Does anyone else have any question yet? Oh, yes, go.
Ascend, because you guys mentioned rosin, and I love rosin, but I noticed you guys don't carry that. Do you guys plan on carrying that soon?
Yeah. So the concentrates that we did have, the concentrates that we do have, is good because at the time, the way the state law was put, this is what we can have. But now that the state laws are kind of opening up more, we are going to have way more a different variation of things. Even the edibles will be going to be opening up a whole lot of that also.
Like this year or next year?
Hopefully this year, but you know how things go with corporate companies, so it might take. But hopefully this year.
Alright, thanks.
All right, let's let this move. We're talking about smoking. Let's talk about all the different methods of consumption, right? Because not all methods are the same, right? We have our smoking, we got vaping, there's tinctures. Everyone familiar with a tincture? Mm-hmm. We have tinctures, there's topicals, right? So you can get local, whatever, you can put it right to the spot.
yeah.
Then this anything, we have edibles, vaping, smoking, the topicals, and they're all a little bit different, When it comes to smoking, it's kind of fast acting, right? It's really fast, but it also wears off quicker when it comes to smoking. When it comes to vaping, vapes generally it's going to be less harsh on the lungs.
Yeah.
I'm not huge on the vapor. They say less harsh on the lungs, but I always find my throat. I'm not a big vapor. I'm a bigger, for me, vaping, stabbing. I'll use the Puffco, load that up. That don't hurt. Tastes so good. And then we have our edibles, but we know about edibles, right? Edibles, they take a while to hit, but there's also a technology called nano, right? Nano is fast acting, so the onset is faster. Edibles, there's no going back. We always hear a story about this happened, right? I took edibles one time, oh my God, never again. And I'm sorry that happened. There's definitely, Spencer was mentioning before, even with the smoking, take a puff. Because if you're trying to heal anxiety, you smoke a whole joint, you may shoot your anxiety through the roof. Or that whole joint may have been what you need. But in order for you to find that out, take one puff first. In order for the edible, just because it's a 10 milligram dosage, maybe it's a 100 milligram pack, right? 10 milligrams. 10 milligrams doesn't mean that that's your dosage. 10 milligrams mean there's 10 milligram pieces in here. Take that 10 milligram piece and chop it up. Maybe you make it into 1 milligram pieces or 2 milligram pieces, 2 5s. Make it small and add more, especially if this is something new for you. I've done this for my father. My father uses the gummies in the evening to go to sleep. So I take they're 20 milligram pieces, and I chop them up into 8 little mini squares for him. So he can microdose them. He doesn't want to be like that, So it's always have a little, we're talking edibles first, have a little bit, give yourself time, give yourself 30 minutes, an hour, before you have a little bit more if you didn't get the effect that you want. I think that's with any of these methods, when it comes to vaping, you don't need to take 10 puffs. If you're new to it, take a puff. And one other thing I want to add in is you were saying, Crystal, about like smoking and being functional and smoking, where's it moving? Smoking, being functional. I think it's good, like when Spencer was saying, walk the dogs, do things that you're close to your home, that you're not too far out, you're not in somewhere where you may get overwhelmed, you know, so it is cool, like you have the bed that's comfortable, but now you can step it up, go for a walk, do things that are still not too far away from home. I think being comfortable is a big piece of trial and error, you know, it can take away a lot of extras. Yeah. So that sounds like, you want to, let's talk about consuming, different methods.
Different methods of consuming.
Preference?
So, my preference, so recently I've gotten into dab also. I never really was a big dab person before because the person introduced me to it, put like a huge dab in there, and I like blew up when I did it. Just from, you know, like the cough making it go up. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. But I grew up smoking, you know, smoking blunts and joints and stuff, and so the ritual of breaking it up, seeing the bud, looking at the bud structure, looking at the trichomes on it, smelling it, something about that I love that ritual. But I moved into now 2023, so I'm up with the time, and I moved into like the concentrates and the dabs. I also do like the edibles also. I enjoy the edibles. I enjoy edibles from when I'm about to go to sleep. For whatever reason, I'll take a low dosage of an edible, just like you said, just a little piece, take a piece. Boom, it helps me go to sleep. I'm not super high when I wake up. Sometimes you can take an edible, wake up in the morning, you got that groggy feeling. You know what I mean? That means that you took too much. I mean, if you're looking at it, you're looking at it. But, you know, like my regular work day, like my Monday night, I'm like, I'm just gonna go to sleep right quick. Yeah, I don't want to feel like that Tuesday morning when I wake up. But yeah, my favorite method is I like to break down weed. I like to roll my joint. I'm not a blunt person anymore. It hurts my lung. But I like a joint. But dabs, I have to say, is the most efficient and cleanest way right now to me to smoke or enjoy or consume. That's just my opinion.
Before we move on to Spencer, I just want to circle it back. We were talking before about, what we just said. We said, I just want to add one thing. Going so fast. Dabs, weed. Oh, I went blank.
Edible.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So when we're talking about, you know, back to the question of using cannabis to heal and finding the right strain, it's also the right method. So depending on what it is that I want to achieve, will also determine what method of delivery I'm going to use. Because, you know, first thing in the morning, I might not want to have that edible if it's going to make me too calm or too, you know, if I need more energy, I'm not going to want to have that edible. You know, maybe I want to have my joint. But that's it plays a piece of what it is we want to get out of it, and that can lead into choosing how do we want to consume at that time. I'm a huge fan of edibles. Like when it comes to edibles, pain management, it helps so much, but not even that. It calms me down. It slows me down in a good way, a way that smoking doesn't. You know, and I'm all day long, my mind doesn't stop. So this slows it down, so it's still going, but not so fast. But that's, yeah. All right.
I guess for me, I mean, I do it all for sure. Like, I guess I have like my daily smoke and then just like my fun smoke. You know what I mean? Like daily smoke is just like I'm rolling like element rice paper. It's just I like roll my own joints like you. I mean, it's like a little arts and crafts to me. You know what I mean? It's like another thing to calm my mind too. Just sitting there, it takes time to do it. So I'll do that, and then I mean, I love rosin too. I like rolling hash holes. So like a hash hole is like you put down flour, you make kind of like a worm-looking like structure with the rosin, and you roll it up and you smoke it, and like in the middle of it, it's like a little hole of like rosin and water smoking it down. And that's kind of like, that'd be like a fun smoke, you know what I mean? Like that's what I broke out like at night or like on the weekend, something like that. I love rolling blunts too. There's a company in Tampa, Florida called Brothers Broadleaf. If you're a blunt smoker, you definitely want to check out these leaves. They're better than a backwood. I don't know if you guys are blunt smokers, but a backwood, you know, you'll usually find the ribs and the tears, stuff like that. But you find a Brothers, it's all natural, no preservative, no flavor, like good leaves. So like I'll roll those up. I like tinctures too, for sure. Like I'll actually go tinctures over edibles for myself. So I need a huge dose for edibles to even like see me. So a tincture, like I can take like tincture and I'll feel that another person would feel an edible. So what else? That's really it. Yeah. I don't really hit cards too much, just because like I just rather roll up my own stuff. I mean, I haven't rolled, so kind of old fashioned in that sense. And then with the dabs, I love so I first got a puff coat actually when I first started doing dabs, and I guess there's a limit to the puff coat and how much you can put in with the globs. So, and I'm like with all my friends, they're crazy, they're like smoking big globs. So that's when I went to the blowtorch and the banger. And so like kind of going back to that kind of OG, like actually like being able to control the heat, like see the redness of the banger, that whole thing is so cool to me. So I have a puff coat. I don't use it much. I usually just use the blowtorch and the banger. It looks like a little science experiment here. I'm doing it, but like it's just like to me it's so fun. So
That's what I add on to what Spencer's saying. He's talking about a rig. So the rig set up, it's not a bong, but it's a glass piece, and you heat it up, you torch it with a shh. It can be a lot for the everyday person. So shout out to companies like Puffco who made electronic devices that they simplify the process. Boop, boop, hit the button, you can choose the different levels of heat. Little glob, boom, put it in. Super easy. They've made it, I love that because dabbing it has its place. And
it has a learning curve for sure.
Totally. So it's so awesome that it's been simplified.
Yeah, and that Puffco, I vouch for Puffco for sure. It's a cool company. Like the owner is super cool. So like Puffco's a good reputable business for sure to support. Like in my mind. So,
Shout out Jolly Roger.
Yeah, Jolly, exactly. I met him actually this weekend, random at a smoke shop, and just was chopping up with him. He like gave me a hot knife. So dude's a cool dude. So I definitely support Puffco and all that for sure.
Does anyone want to share their favorite consumption method and why?
No, you go first. You go first. Well, my favorite method is not the best. I like to roll a blunt, a backwood, a fat wood.
Yeah.
But one thing that I don't like is like the taste on your mouth and the tar. So I like wash it. I wash it with some water, then get a piece of paper and like dry it up, roll it. Rule of thumb is if it's not fatter than your pinky, you're smoking the wood. You're not smoking weed. So it has to be thicker than my pinky. And I like to smoke. I like it in my face. Like I like it when it goes and it's like it's not a real blunt if it's not smacking me in the face. Like, a joint, the wind will blow the wind will smoke the joint. If we're inside, I feel like I like when the room is all smoky and it's because of me. So that's my favorite way to consume.
Oh, I'm very simple. Actually all my friends make fun of me. I just roll old dad joints. Old mom joints, like no bullshit. Sometimes no filter, guys. Yeah. And that's it. Just roll a joint, smoke it, that's it. And then moving on and then working. And that's it. It's just a way to get through the day. It's not the day. You know, it's not like that.
I like glass, bongs, bowls, all that stuff. Like, it's just easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm same with you. Like, a little disjoint, just roll it up, quick hit, go. But it's, the rituals has a time and a place. Like, if I'm just chilling at home, but for the most part, I'm like moving around too much, so it's just easier to just put the flower in the bong or the bowl and just smoke up and go.
You know what I find with the glassware? I just find, honestly, the joints, I find that I can taste the terps the most in a joint.
Yeah.
And I'm a terp hunter. I love that. There's yes.
But it depends, because you have to have the glass has to be cleaned a lot if you want to taste the right
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's the only work part that goes into. If you do the work on the back end, you'll enjoy the weed better.
Let's talk about cannabis storage. How do you store your?
So I am a glass mason jar person. I'm old school. That's what I was taught in California when I started growing, and that's how they kept it. But that's how they cured it. Also incorporated the mason jar, so I keep my bud that way. I think that recently I saw these bags that you can like you put your bud in there and you seal them up and it keeps it good. I don't know what the long term is on that though. It's something new. I saw the smoke shop yesterday somewhere and I was like, I'm not really sure about that. I know plastic bags after a while your butter get real dry. And then they're talking about you can add moisture back to it. I'm like, I don't know about all that. That don't sound official to me. But yeah, I like jars. That's my stuff for jars.
I would say jars too.
Yeah, I'm saying.
I have a question on that. Would you say that like leaving it room temperature or being in the fridge would that make any difference?
What happened?
So the fridge, the coldness will it will keep your trichomes and keep your crystals on it. It will keep them good for longer. It's not going to be like a huge effect on the time though, but it will keep them good for longer. And I don't know how much you're buying and how much you're keeping, for that long. Me personally, my stash is going to go before it's even going to.
Yeah. I'd say you put like rosin or hash like in the fridge sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't have an experience putting flour in there yet. We gotta smoke it too.
What happens if you like keep it in a bag? Like what?
Plastic
Like
bag?
yeah, like what happens if you don't store it in a jar?
So let's talk about so when we're talking about cannabis or weed, whatever we're calling it weed, we're talking about our weed we want, or flower per se. We got to think about it like produce. We want to make sure we're storing it right and we're not saving it. It has a shelf life. The terpenes are going to diminish away over time. So without proper storage, it's going to be less effective over time. So proper storage is definitely important. When it comes to plastic, I don't like plastic anything. Microplastics, I'm just not a fan of plastic. I know we have plastic water bottles today. But I'm not a fan of plastics, period. Microplastics building up in our body, that's going to fog up our pineal gland, that's our intuition. So if you're asking me, keep your weed out of plastic bags. Glass jars, I think that's probably the best way. They do make these Bovita packs, the humidifier packs. Again, that's something that I'm not trying to add moisture to my cannabis. I'd rather use it and get rid of it in a timely fashion rather than adding, it's not my thing. I feel like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Where were we at just now? Let's see here. Boom, 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 smoking, storage, glass, and let's talk about overconsumption. Has anyone overconsumed, had an edible experience, or that's...
So my first time baking a cake. I was in high school, I made too much wheat oil and put the whole thing instead of like microdosing the oil. And then when the cake was done, I forgot that it was a wheat cake. And ate the whole cake.
Oh.
And then I wasn't even supposed to be high or out. So I was out with my boyfriend at the time and then it was too high. And then it's just like I had my dad call, and then the walk of shame to go home. And then I was walking home, and he saw me walking, and then I got in the car, and it just from there, to me it's a dream, but it physically happened. And I know I got home, and he's like, go to bed, and I went to bed, but I ended up throwing up all over my room, all over the bathroom, all over the carpet, cleaned it all up before anybody could see. Went to bed, the next day I was like, there's nothing there. And then I realized there was still a little bit by the door hinge, so it really all happened. I still to this day, that's my worst experience. And it took me a long time to do edibles again, but now I'm microdose.
So, what do you do if you overconsume? Let me hear you.
Oh, how many others? In Midtown and how many, especially international. There are a lot of Europeans, Australia, all over. They always come keeping their brains up because they need the edibles, because they don't know where they're getting it from, and they don't tell them to start small. So they're coming cheap all over the place. So they go to sleep. But let me tell you how I help your movement. When they wake up, I educate them on how to use edibles. And the dumb schmucks who use everything else, I tell them to go legal and to use the pot.
Thank you. So I have another trick you can do. If you overconsume, your CBD is your best friend. CBD is going to counteract that psychoactive, right? It's going to bring you back down. So if you overconsume, having some CBD tincture around would be great. Pop it in your mouth. That will help you come back down. Right? That's pretty cool. CBD, go with a thumb.
It's like a poison is some medicine. It does everything.
It does everything. I love
Hair
that.
dog, yeah.
Pick that one up over there.
Someone said also peppercorn.
Yeah.
That's another.
Chew on it.
Yeah, if you chew on a
I've
peppercorn.
heard that too. Yeah, I've never tried that.
Yeah, no, you haven't.
Yeah, that's what
Heard that application.
So let's circle back around. My mother just said some of these people coming to the ER are coming in, you know, they didn't take it slow, or they don't know where they're getting the edibles from, because not all edibles are the same. So when it comes to, you know, when you're shopping with a dispensary, there's a lot of like testing that goes on. Can you fill us in on like what those processes are, like what goes on?
So the testing is going to be for THC, molds, mildews, heavy metals, to make sure that everything is flushed out correctly. You don't want these things, when you go to the dispensary, you don't want to smoke something that's heavy metals, or you want something that's like totally mildewed out. That stuff right there will give you irritants in your lungs. So what they do is they send them to like a third-party tester, and a lot of them, they'll test for the THC content, they'll test to make sure everything's okay. Only thing I would say to be careful about with these things is that some companies will pay for the third-party testers to make the THC content higher. That's an actual thing that's going on. It's a big thing in the industry. It's everywhere from the West Coast over to the East Coast. But companies like Ascend and like other big MSOs, they're obviously going to go to people who are more legitimate. And you're really going to find that with people who are trying to, or companies who are trying to cut corners. I don't really see that too much with the mom and pops that are coming up, like the smaller grows. I feel like the smaller grows really care more about the quality, the terpene levels of THC and what they're giving to their patients. Not saying that MSOs don't care, I just feel like the smaller places have time to pay attention to all of that. But as far as testing goes, yeah, they go to a third-party tester who will test for everything as far as heavy metals. If they pass, then we'll put them on the shelf. If they don't pass, then we cannot serve that to the public.
What happens with the ones that don't pass?
They get incinerated.
Oh.
You wouldn't want it anyway, trust me. You don't want to smoke anything with any molds or mildew in it. You will be coughing like you think you have COVID or something.
Right?
Yeah.
So does any, we got
How long does it take for like mold or mildew to like grow on weed after like sitting out for so long?
So a mildew can grow in weed in less than 24-hour period.
And that's just from being in the human environment or just being dried out?
So your mildews are going to mostly come when it's like if your density levels on your plants are way too high. So you have companies, I've seen companies that try to put way too many plants on one table. Right? They I want to get the most yield. Well, you're going to get the most yield, but then a lot of it's going to be contaminated. So you're not going to get it anyway. So the density levels on that, plus the humidity, because you have to have humidity in your vegetative state. Your vegetative state is when your humidity is going to be really high. Also in your flower, you're going to have a certain amount of humidity also. But when you have water, like you're gonna have water running through your room because you have to water your plants. Water, humidity, and the density levels are high, that's going to equal mildews and molds. Those mildews and molds, like a mold, a spore from a mold, a mushroom can grow overnight. So the same can be said for a mildew or any other type of mold. These things can grow within a 24-hour period. Sometimes it'll be there and you won't see it because it's so microscopic. So it's there and then you can come back 2 days later and like, holy crap, what happened to my plant? Now your plant's covered in this white mist. People are like, oh wow, look at the crystals on it. No, that's not all. I've actually heard that recently, people, you have entry-level cultivators come in and do like, wow, bro, this plant's so icy, look at it. I was like, yeah, well actually that plant needs to be quarantined because that's probably mildew. Oh wow, if you smoke that, you'd be messed up, bro.
Let's start to do a little bit of recap before we do a Q&A and see if anyone else has any other questions. So to be mindful with our cannabis consumption, start low and go slow, right? You can always have more, but you can never take, you can't, if I could turn back time, you can't, right? So start low, go slow, begin with a low dose of cannabis and wait at least an hour before consuming more. If you're smoking, you don't have to wait an hour, right? That's more for our edibles, but depending on that, give yourself time. Pay attention to your body. We always want to be mindful of how our body's reacting to this specific strain, to this specific delivery method, right? Journaling is awesome. Like, I keep a journal. I like to journal. It's not only for cannabis, it's my journal. But I do write down if I'm trying something new. So it's important that we are tracking. That's the word I was looking for. We're tracking. Using cannabis in a safe environment, that's really important. Nowhere where you're gonna really feel uncomfortable or unsafe, right? We don't wanna, this just isn't gonna help us find what works for us. We're in a situation that makes us feel uncomfortable. Now we feel uncomfortable on top of whatever else, right? Choose high quality products, right? We wanna make sure we're purchasing products from a reputable source, right? We wanna make sure there's no contaminants in there. And then, yeah, those are the 5. I want to ask any of you if you want to share ways that you use cannabis intentionally in your life.
Hi, my name's Lindsay. I own a business. I'm a mom of 2, and I have a lot of other stuff going on other than that. But I use it to manage my anxiety. I use it to manage, like, I get such high anxiety that I get very, very nauseous. So that has been a journey, using CBD, using cannabis in a controlled way. So I actually love, like Grav makes a really great dugout system where you can, if you know, like, okay, I'm getting, I can fit 2 grams in here, right? So you can actually dose yourself through the day. You can take a one that's like, I'm starting to feel anxious, I'm starting to feel nauseous, I'm starting to feel something. So you can actually take your Grav, take your 1 hit, and then it's like, okay, I'm feeling better. You don't need to smoke a joint, you don't need to do that. You can actually, I like just using 1 hit. So I'll kind of just do that throughout the day. Like in my morning, I have like, my time where I meditate in the morning, and that's when I consume. And then the next time I consume would be like right before lunch. And, like I have kind of like a method. And then dose up or down as you need to, but at least it's controlled.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to share? All right, let's move into a Q&A. If anyone has any questions for us, now's that time. You can ask us anything we went over.
I have a question. You mentioned inflammation earlier. Is there a specific turpentine that you look for when trying to solve the issue? Whether it's like pain or inflammation in the mind?
For like pain, I like myrcene, mineral. That's what I look for. But then it's like there's so many terpenes out there, so it's really getting familiar with the different terpenes, the beta calf, and I can't count some of them. There's so many of them, and they all have different effects. So it's good to educate ourselves on these terpenes, even just to know them, because there are certain terpenes that are going to be high in anti-inflammatory properties. There's there's terpenes for everything. I guess we can say that. So it's just great to educate ourselves on them as a whole, and then so that when we start diving into the strains, oh, this one has myrcene, mineral, has pinene. You know those already because you've already reviewed them.
Okay. Also, too, your terpenes. So your terpenes, most of the time, they're going to burn off at about 250 degrees. So like when you think about when you're smoking, you have that, or if you're using edibles and stuff like that. So a lot of them burn for 250. Some of them burn for like 175. So it's like me personally, like if I'm making like my butter from my edibles, I like to make like a ghee butter. And so I'm gonna keep it at a lower level, just simmering, so that those terpenes stay in there. You know what I mean? Because it also makes your edibles smoother when you're using something like that. And also too, the flavor profile and what you're looking for, those effects will be there also. So just keep that in mind if you're doing something.
Okay. No, that's okay.
Any other questions?
I have another question. We didn't really talk about this, but I know by law, like concentrates, tinctures, edibles, they all have a shelf life. Like dispensaries can't sell that for like a certain amount of time, but yet for flower, that doesn't exist. So what's up with that?
Actually, for flower, it does exist.
Does it exist?
Yeah. So after, say like every 3 months, us in the Sen, we get rid of like a whole bunch of product that would be considered old or expired because we're not going to put that on the shelf for you. So yeah, and we actually get rid of a lot of buds.
So if I buy and it's about a year old, can I like complain about that, or like it's some?
Absolutely.
Did they do something about that?
You should absolutely complain about that.
Okay.
If you're going to any dispensary and they're serving you bud that's a year old, you absolutely need to complain about that.
Yeah, because it's been happening a lot more now that I know this.
Then you need to bring that up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I go to the dispensary, like,
Yeah, look at
and it's a new dispensary, like the first thing I ask them is like, what's your freshest stuff you have in? Like, just what's kind of
That's how you navigate, you'll start.
yeah, that's kind of how I start, and then I go to flavors. So I'd rather have the freshest stuff than like the perfect, like, I guess flavor profile. You know, it's always like kind of cool there. I can kind of vibe with it. I want the freshest stuff.
I love that because like we were talking before, fresh means it's going to be, this is when it's highest in its terpenes, this is when it's going to be its most effective, right? So I like that process.
So like, Eva and I, we both work in the vault at Ascend. So like, say we get something from you guys from processing that comes or harvested in 2000, like a year, 22, we'll make it always a year later is the expiration. So we don't sell anything that's a year flower-wise after it was harvested.
That's right.
And we'll destroy it,
That's
like
right.
off the walls, gotta get destroyed.
My lungs are destroyers.
So, just to like give a little bit of back end on why you're kind of seeing older flower come through dispensaries is because of the holdup with the market and the overproduction, and this is about kind of like the amount of people that are producing right now and the amount of people with the amount of licenses to sell. So right now there's a big overproduction of flower and a lot of local dispensaries are not open yet. So there was a time we anticipated to be operational 2023. Now, even as a cultivator on a craft scale, we're not going to have our first harvest until probably late 2024, early 2025. So, like, we all expected to be operational, but there are things that go along with compliance and regulations and just the limited amount of licensing and hurdles for people to open cannabis businesses on a small scale. So it's all just starting to pile up.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's the name of the blonde papers? Brothers what?
Brothers Broadleaf.
Broadleaf.
Brothers Broadleaf, yeah. And like they have a couple different ones, like the Havanas, which are like the more like a lighter leaf, and then Packs and Pearls, which are like the darker leaf, like those like if you think like the backwood, like think like dark stout, like the dark Russian versus like the regular Russian cream, like the Havana. So I like the Havanas.
They're natural.
Sorry.
They're natural.
Sorry again, sorry.
They're like more natural.
Yeah, it's like all natural, like no, it's like not woods that have like a flavoring, like there's no flavoring, it's just like a tobacco leaf. And just like no stem, there's no like holes, nothing. They're definitely, like, that's the only leaf I try to roll up, honestly.
And then if we in wellness, do you offer just strictly yoga classes to cater for?
We have our signature class is called Higher Intentions, Mindful Hit. It incorporates all the different pieces of wellness that help me rebuild myself back to being just a better, stronger version of myself. We start off with breath work. From the breath work, we do a hit session. After the hit, we stretch so we do some yoga to come down, followed by a guided meditation. So it's a 60-minute class. I like to call it a journey because it is a journey, you know. We go all over the place and we pass through and we're doing that breath work. You know, a lot of things happen when we're breathing, you know. We're breathing, we're meditating, we're moving. Between those practices, that's what made me back to who I am. So I created Higher Intentions. That's our signature class. We do weed yoga, but that's what we try to not be. Because, not be, but we offer weed yoga, right? We have, so Weed and Wellness is not just diet, we have other instructors that we also work with. So we offer, there's Pilates, there's Scope, there's yoga, there's our Higher Intentions HIT. We have a program called Buds and Barbells. That's our barbell class that we do over in Oradell at Project Flex.
Oradell, New Jersey.
Oradell, New Jersey. That's Crystal. Crystal's gym is Project Flex. We host over there sometimes.
Yeah, so he partners up with us a lot to host the Bud and Barbells class because we are a weightlifting gym. So it works out and my members love it. I personally can't get high and lift weights because 50 pounds will feel like 1,000. But a lot of people, they do that before their session and they have an awesome experience. So yeah, you can always find us on Google as well. Project Flex in Oregon, New Jersey, but it's not far from it. Or you see it on his page whenever he's posting that.
So that's it. We don't just do the yoga. We do all sorts of different fitness modalities and all sorts of fitness modalities. You know, it's not, and We Don't Wellness isn't about getting high and working out. That's like the furthest thing. It's about learning about cannabis, how it interacts with our body, how we can incorporate it into our routines, right? And how it can benefit us, how we can get the most from it. And that's what it's really about education and bringing people together here in this room through this. But today we got to move together. We got to learn something about the cannabis together. But this is why I started to bring us together. And together, like I said earlier, all of us are weed and wellness, but the more of us grow, we start to really shift the narrative that surrounds cannabis. I've been to so many cannabis events, and I'm not a fan of sitting in a room just smoking weed. It just isn't my thing. This is it for me. I love fitness. I like feeling good. I like making people feel good. I like to, so I want to see more of this, and we are seeing more of it. You know, we're seeing a lot more of these sort of activations going on. So it's really, it makes me smile, because it's not, I want to see, the more that we see other people doing this as well, the more that the movement pushes forward. Because this is for all of us. Like, Weed and Wellness, it's yours just as much as it's mine. So I want to thank each and one of you for coming out today, for joining us, for being a part of this community. If you don't follow us on social media, please do. It's at Weed and Wellness. That way you can stay in the loop. We post up on our website. We have daily workouts. You'll find different articles on there. So, we keep you up to date with cannabis and with your fitness and wellness, and that's what we're here for. You want to take the last words?
I have a question for people, because this is the thing for me. So I'm all about cannabis culture. And so is there anybody here that experienced smoking weed, enjoying cannabis, introduce you to people that you might not have spoken to or might not have, interacted with, without that. But that was the common ground. And you're like, oh, you know what? Wow, that's actually a dope song. For me, it was skateboarding. When I was young, coming from Brooklyn, New Jersey, I wasn't skateboarding. But I met, I lived in Fairlawn for a while. Met these kids, they were skateboarding. They were very open to me because Fairlawn at that time was not very diverse. I was one of 5 black families that lived in that town. But these kids, they invited me in, but not only did they listen to hip hop, but they had this other thing, this grunge thing, and I was like, man, what are y'all listening to? What's all this Nirvana stuff? And they put me onto it, but we had these conversations because we smoked weed. So has anybody else experienced that part of cannabis culture?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You guys got anything to say about that?
Working at a stand, the people that you meet, you would never know that they even smoke weed or were in the industry if you never would have met them there, So basically.
That's super cool.
It's disjointed on Netflix.
Yeah.
That's what it's like working there.
That's so cool.
Spencer, any final words?
No, just thanks for having me. I'm excited to just give my information to you guys. I have a discount code for On if anyone wants it. I don't have the code on me, but my Instagram is just Spence Runs High. So if you follow, you don't have to follow me. I'll just DM it to you if you DM me back. But I'll send the 20% off code for On. I love just getting other stoners out into the trails, out to the whatever. So you have a couple pair of shoes to do it. It makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, it's great meeting everybody, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Let's give it up for the panelists. Let's give it up for you guys as well. Definitely follow us. Check out the website. Find events is on there. We're going to have some cool summer activations with the SEN. There's going to be just all sorts of events. So just keep in the loop and keep on. Let's do this. Thank you again. Thank you so much.